All right, welcome everyone. We are super excited to have you joining us today with our incredible presenter, Jenahlee Chamberlain, who is going to be taking us from drab to fab, all of her amazing graphic design tips and tricks for everyone. So with that, Jenahlee, you are a teacher librarian by trade, and you are currently serving as a innovation IDS support and a virtual teacher librarian through Iowa City Community School District. But I will let you do your own official introduction here, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. Yeah, so like Lynn said, I'm Jenahlee. I am currently a K-6 online librarian in the Iowa City School District. Iowa City maintained an online program after post-COVID emergency online stuff. So we do like synchronous learning with kids. So I do that for half my job, and the other half of my job, I am an innovation coach where I work with teachers throughout our district. So my contact information is there. Feel free to contact me at any point in time. Some people are probably like, where does this graphic design come from? I did originally go to school for art and art education, so I do have an art background, and my love for graphic design has just continued to grow since then. So with that, we're gonna get started. So this is, like Lynn said, this is from Drab to Fab, graphic design tips and tricks for everyone. And this is adapted from a presentation that I gave at ITEC in the fall. And I'm just trying to make it something that's it's going to be a lot of stuff thrown at you pretty quickly since we don't have a lot of time. And then we'll see if there's questions or, yeah, so let's get going. Get my stuff going. So I assume that most of you are educators in this webinar of some kind or work in education, and what I'm sure a lot of people are probably thinking is like, I have all these hats that I wear already, so why are you wanting me to like think about graphic design? I'm not a designer. I don't know about this stuff. But the thing is that it's really important. It's more important to teaching and learning than you might realize. So that leads us to, why does design matter? Well, around 65% of the population are visual learners, and our eyes can process visual images at around 36,000 visual messages per hour, and 90% of the information that's transmitted to our brain is visual. And we all know that the kids that we're teaching these days are completely visual with social media. Everything's visually engaging, and so that needs to translate into what we're doing with our work in instructional design and designing materials, and also using graphic design in your content creation makes learning more accessible for everyone. So here's a few things that you need to know about why it matters. So it supports learning, and as I go through each of the different principles that we're going to talk about, I'm going to share with you like how each of them specifically help your learners and yourselves. It increases understanding. It removes obstacles. This is a big proponent, like making sure that people can access, see, read, hear what you're doing is really important. And it increases accessibility, like I just said. So I love this quote. It's not about making things pretty, but having things make sense. So when I did this presentation, it was called Make Learning Pretty. And it was talking about graphic design and teaching and learning. And so it's nice for things to look good and look pretty, but it's really about making them accessible and have them make sense. So I'm going to start with this. This is an example from a book called The Non-Designer's Design Book, which was written by Robin Williams, not the actor, but a different person. And you might be looking at this and I don't know what you're thinking. It's kind of a little beginning exercise in the book. Most of us, when we look at something, you can tell that it's poorly designed or that you don't like it, but you don't know how to fix it. And that's what we're going to talk about today in this. So a little redesign of this is same information, some minor changes, but I'll let I would venture to guess that most of you are probably a little more drawn to the one on the left. Okay. So we're going to go over 4 basic concepts about the principles of design. And the great thing about this is that once you know what they are and can name them, you can find the solution. So once you can look at something and say oh, that's not quite right, I can do this, that, or apply one of these 4 principles, you're going to be able to see quickly what's wrong and fix it, or adapt something that you find that's maybe not so great, which we're going to look at as well. So like I said, we're going to talk about 4 design principles. They are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. As you can see, the acronym spells CRAP. It's oftentimes changed to CARP, so you see it both ways. Either way, if you don't use CARP, your design will be crap. So there are many design principles out there. And concepts. We're narrowing it down to these 4, and every good piece of design will have these 4 elements. We're going to talk about them separately, but it's very rare that you only apply just one because they are interconnected. And I have this graphic that I created. If you click on that, it will open it up to a bigger one. This is just if you feel like you need a little cheat sheet at some point. It's all on one page for you in that way. So you can print that out or just keep it somewhere if it's something that you feel like you need to utilize in the future. So let's start with contrast. In simple terms, it's when 2 elements on a page are distinctly different, okay? So it's the use of visually different elements. And for each of these, I kind of have a little scenario that explains it. So if 2 items on the page are not exactly the same, so if you look closely, these are similar, but they're not the same. So if 2 items on the page are not exactly the same, then makes them different, really different. And something that Robin Williams says in her book a lot is don't be a wimp. She says it a lot. It's true. If 2 elements on a page are sort of different, but not really, you don't have contrast, you have conflict. So get serious with the contrast. Don't be afraid to push it further than you think, because it's going to make a difference in the long run. So the reasons why we use contrast: it provides a focus. It's going to draw your eye. As you look through things, if you start to pay attention to where your eyes go, really pay attention to what they look at first or the direction that they go, that's how kids are anybody who looks at it is going to access it. So keep that in mind when you're looking. It improves readability, it organizes the information, and it guides the reader. So when you start to think about where your eyes are drawn to and the order that you're going through the page, think about that when you want a kid to go through, or a student, or whoever your learner is, to access those materials. So there's some different ways you can add contrast. You can add contrast using color. So complementary colors, and I have a slide next that's going to give some more color theory, which we're not going to go in depth in. These are complementary colors. They're opposite on the color wheel: dark and light, and then temperature contrast. And this is probably the hardest one. If we have time, I'm going to show you guys some accessibility tools, and temperature can be really hard for contrast checkers for people that are colorblind, or just the readability, but it is a way to add contrast. So here's a quick little, again, I can't remember if I linked this. If not, I will. This was kind of I changed this a little bit, but just some simple color theory. I'm not going to go into depth, but like I was saying, if you're not familiar or don't remember from taking art, complementary colors are opposite on the color wheel. Color properties: cool, warm, saturated, desaturated, and then here's kind of those color relationships that I was talking about: complementary, primary, triad, all of those things. Another way to add contrast is with size and shape. So small and big. You can do that with text. You can do it with shapes. the shape of boxes or even text, thinking about text as being geometric, like this top one, or rounded like this. It doesn't have any sharp edges. And then here is the contrast, right? It's not only contrast in color, but like this box has sharp edges and the text is rounded. So you're creating a contrast in more than one way. And then with shape. So just by putting a shape that's different than the rest of the shapes on your page, you're going to draw the eye to that right away. The next way is using texture and pattern. So thinking about more of natural shapes or grungy, kind of like paint loose and then having like a geometric text on top of it. Your text itself can have a pattern or a texture, or the background can. So just seeing the opposites there. And then again, kind of that organic elements with geometric text is another way to do that. Fonts and typography, my favorite, which can be a total time suck as well. So hard or soft, so adding two fonts together that are different adds contrast. A fun font and a simple font. If your whole page was in this font, it's going to be too much for your reader. So reserve those fun fonts for headers or things that are, you know, not all over the page. And then serif and sans serif. So if serif means it has those little ends on it, like those little like ends on each of the text, and sans serif will not have those. Sarah says, I definitely know not to use Comic Sans. Oh yeah, we'll talk more about fonts, hopefully. Another way is with alignment and spacing. So just moving things off to the side. Like this, you know, it has a pretty distinct line. Again, this also uses shape. So you have this very straight line with a more of an organic shape on top of it that's creating that contrast. And here's kind of another, you're obviously very drawn to the white box on the black background. You have this very striking picture that's just the beetle. So it's really going to draw your eye to that part of the page. So here's an example. I did not make this. This is not a real book report. If you actually read it, I found this on Canva exactly like this. Okay, so throughout this, I found a few examples that are bad examples in my opinion, but I show some quick ways that you can redesign them. So just by adding contrast to this, you'll see that I didn't change any of the text underneath. There's a lot more I would do to this than this, but I just wanted to show you how just some basic changes in contrast. So I made this whiter. I added white text on top of the blue. I made these bigger and bolder. I took out some of the text and I also added in, I changed the background to white because this light blue it's making it almost vibrate. So you can just see how little things can really increase the readability and like just being able to like look at it and see what's happening on that page pretty quickly. The next principle is alignment. Every element has a visual connection to another element on the page. This is what's really gonna add just that cleanliness. It's going to make things look clean and nice. So a lack of alignment creates discomfort. It looks unorganized and we struggle to function. So if you think about being like, if I was going to get tickets and these are all the people standing in front, I don't know what to do, right? So alignment creates calm, it communicates clearly, and we know what to do in those scenarios. So it creates order. Again, it guides the reader. It reduces cognitive load because I know where to look, I know what's going on, and it increases the professionalism. It's just going to look nicer on your page. So a way to do that is to use a grid. In slides, if you go to insert table, you can do a 3x3. There's a concept called the rule of thirds, which I'll show you on the next slide. Using guides and tables are something that I like to utilize when I am putting information on a page. So the rule of thirds, if you divide a page into thirds, these intersecting points they say that's where like your focal point should be. And that's what's going to keep balance and alignment on your page. Oh, I'm losing my train of thought. On slides, you have guides as well. And I'm going to show you the guides on another slide here in just a little bit. Text alignment is another important one. Left alignment, center alignment, right alignment. You guys are probably most familiar with this in Word documents, word processing. Center alignment is considered the weakest alignment because it doesn't create a distinct line. So if it has jagged edges along the side. So if you add a left alignment or a right alignment, you're going to have a lot more contrast. You're going to have contrast, but you're going to have like a very clear, distinct line on your page. Just going to help your readers. And then images and shapes. You would know immediately if one of these was out of alignment. I'm hoping if I can, oh, see, I didn't know if it was going to do that, but I'll go back into that in just a second. So I wanted to show you guys here, it says guides. If I show the guides, these are the guides that I placed on this page to show you all the distinct lines that are made and how things connect to each other on here. The nice thing about Canva and slides is you have the guides kind of pop up on there, and you'll see them kind of helping you along the way, and then you can make those go away. But I just wanted to show you how distinct those lines are when you use alignment. You should be able to, everything should be connected to something else on the page. It shouldn't just be randomly placed. You still see that okay? I went back into presenter mode. Okay. Using background images and shapes. So adding a strong color to the to one side or a very distinct vertical line is going to add alignment as well. Repetition is where I think you get the most bang for your buck. This is where you repeat some aspect of the design throughout the entire piece. So if you look at this, there are people in this group that are part of a team. You probably can't tell who they are, right? Because all these people just look random. But by adding in repetition in their clothes, it's clear that these people are connected in some way. So you can, if you look, you can see that the people have these yellow and purple garb on in the picture. So yeah, so it just creates a cohesiveness. It creates consistency. Again, it organizes information, it strengthens the visual interest, and it adds polish. You may have noticed that my slides are all, everything matches. Okay, I use consistent colors. I have a color scheme that I stick to and use. I even use it in my graphics. I use the same font. I have a few different layouts that I use, but everything is consistent throughout. And a good way to do this is with layouts. So you can use templates. You can create your own templates. You can use pre-made options like on Slides Go or Slides Carnival. And I have a resource document at the end that shares all kinds of things about that. And then you can also use Theme Builder in Slides to personalize them or adapt them to work for you. So if you find maybe a background that you like on a template, but you don't like it, you can go into Theme Builder and change anything you want on there, and then it's gonna apply to everything in the slide. I recommend if you want to change the theme, do it from the very beginning. So if you find a template and you want to go in and change it, this top slide is your master slide. That's what's going to change the font on all of your pages. You might notice that some of the spacing and stuff will change. So then you'll have to go in and just resize things so it fits properly. But if you do that from the beginning and set in all of your backgrounds, then it'll just make it a lot easier for your workflow. And I went to that's View Theme Builder. There's also slide change theme or edit theme is in there as well. Okay. So that's templates. Or did I skip a page? Yes, colors. Like I said, you keep colors consistent throughout. Pick a color scheme. Your headers and body text, keep the same fonts, type of fonts, bolds, whether it's bold and a not bold, or backgrounds and graphics. The hex codes, I keep those in there so that if I want to use them elsewhere, I can quickly copy and paste them. A cool thing about slides that you might not know, and I don't, is that if you have colors, like if I wanted to copy and paste like these circles into another slide deck that was completely different, it would automatically add those into my palette. So if you copy and paste an actual like color into there, it's going to add it automatically to your palette for you, which is pretty cool. Fonts, stick to 1 or 2. This is the same font right here with different weights. So it's like a fine to a heavyweight, all the same font, but very different looks. Serif versus sans serif. You don't want them to be too similar. This is Lexend, which is my current favorite font. Use it instead of Comic Sans. There's a lot of research behind it, but it's got great readability. But you can see that these two look pretty similar. And again, create clear contrast between whatever 2 fonts you choose. A little note about fonts. I'm trying to talk fast because we're in a run of time. Keep in mind your audience. So I use this example of like my own journey when I was creating headers for my Canvas course. I started out where each class had a different color. You know, it was color coded and I had all this cute stuff. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm just going to make it all the same. It's going to be black with this teal. Those are my school colors. And then I'm like, these are kindergartners. They probably can't even read that. So then you'll notice that I changed it to a very readable font. So keep in mind your audience. Like, do I love how these top 2 look? Yes, but I'm not the audience. My students are. So just something to keep in mind about that. Decorative fonts, reserve those for headers or for emphasis. And then just think about that accessibility. And like I said, I have some resources at the end to talk about that. When you use visuals, keep them consistent as well. Typically choose images or choose graphics. I like to use icons. You can use multicolor icons or just a single color of icon. Consistent colors, whether you're using black and white images or color images, just choose something and stick to it. The last one of the crap is proximity, and this is grouping related items together. So on a page as in life, physical closeness implies a relationship. So you can see that these people could be walking down the street, they have nothing to do with each other, but the minute they're in close proximity, we assume that there is some kind of relationship between those 2 people. So it clarifies connections, it reduces clutter. I think it said organized information has been on every single one of these, and it improves comprehension. So some great reasons to use that. So this is an example. I just created this as an example. When you look at this, not great, right? Like I have to read through this whole thing, but if you add this one, you can quickly see what you need to know, right? Like I don't have to read anything to know like what my kid needs to wear. I don't have to read through a whole paragraph to figure out what my kid needs to wear on this field trip, right? So putting things in close proximity to each other really just it chunks up the information and makes it easy to quickly see what's most important on the page. Here's another not great example that I found on Canva. I don't know what's going on here. I think the text is fine, but these I have numbers, so I know I need to follow this method, but these lines aren't really guiding me anywhere. It just kind of looks a little random. So I took the information and just added more than just proximity, but you can see I really grouped things together that are like, and I took out that light green background to increase the contrast. I made these clearer and easier to read. So you can just see that adding those little things can really change how easy it is for something to read, how accessible, how easy it is to follow. And then these are some other examples of proximity. Obviously the proximity of these kind of creates this flower shape. If they were just on random spots on the page, that you wouldn't get that. And these are examples I found on Canva just to show you. So, knowing like the color coding helps here too, but like these are directly connected to each other. So I know they're related. On a resume, grouping information can really clear up what you're trying to show a future employer, right? Okay, so I'm doing good. And what you'll see in the slide, there's a whole bunch of stuff after this that I just included so that you would have some other stuff. So I've included this resource document, and I know that it's easiest if you kind of zoom into it. And that graphics on there. I have a design practice workbook that if you want to just kind of go into each, like practice a little bit with each of those principles, there's just little like tips and tricks in there. Color stuff, image resources, free fonts, web safe fonts. Here's the information about that. Lexend, places to get templates. The one thing I want to highlight, because they've just added accessibility stuff on here, tools that are awesome on here. This is Adobe Color. It's completely free. So if you have a color that you like, you can put it in the middle of this, and then you can even you can say, I want complementary. So it's going to automatically go, and then I can rotate these. You can even go up into the Explore, find color palettes that you like, but these accessibility tools are great. So this is a contrast checker. So I can see right now I have this is like bad. Okay. You want to have, I believe it's at least, I think it's like 4.8 is the recommended minimum contrast. So you'll notice as I slide these, like that's going to change. And it also gives me recommended choices over here. So I can go in and, I can put in a color I like. I'm going to, oh, well, those are horrible together. So I might, look through and just, you can move things around, put things in. And then if you're like, well, I kind of want these two colors, it's going to give you a recommended choice. It also has a colorblind safe. So obviously those, this is for a red, green colorblind person. This is not, red and green are not good choices, right? Because everything kind of looks the same. So I'm just moving these around just so you can kind of see like how the difference is for that. So it's going to show you what it's like for people with color blindness. So what your color palette's going to look like. So just making sure that there is still differences in those is really important as well. So that's Adobe Color and that's in there, but there's tons of other stuff that's there just for you to explore and use. I have some other examples that just from work that I've done. I mean, this is basic, just using boxes, using a table. It chunks up the information, everything's aligned. I know what needs to go where, it just makes it simple for your user. This is a more advanced example, like how everything is matching and connects, and they know that everything is, if you pick a theme and stick to it, that repetition can flow through multiple things. Things I use on my Canvas courses, I use tables in there to help chunk up the information. And then below that are some tools. And then at the very bottom is a whole bunch of examples of things from Canva that you can use with students for student projects. And if you didn't know, Canva is completely free for educators. You get all the stuff with it. So make sure if you don't have that, sign up and get verified. But yeah, feel free to explore the rest of that stuff. I knew I probably wouldn't get to it, but I just wanted it to be there so you could reference back to it. But that's what I got. So graphic design is great. I hope this helped you just see that like some little things can really make a big difference. And I think once you can name the problem, you can fix it. So I hope that you guys learned something, and you'll look at some of your materials and see what little tweaks you can make to improve that for your students. So thank you for being here. I love talking about this. If you ever want like an opinion or advice, just let me know and send me what you got and I'll give you some opinions. So that's all. Thank you. You can do questions if you got them, but don't feel like you got to stay.
Oh my goodness, Jenahlee, on behalf of the ITEC board, we thank you so much for being willing to join us today. And the chat has just been exploding with all sorts of great ideas, the things that people are taking away from this session. And we are so excited to dig in because there's so many pieces to this that I think you've left us with a whole desire to continue to up our graphic design games.
Sorry if the rest of your to-do list is ruined for the day. But.
Yeah, I mean, it
It'll
feels
be worth
like it's
it.
par for the course, but it's absolutely fantastic. So thank you all so much for joining us. As Jenahlee said, we'll stick around for just a second. I'll stop the recording, but just giving you the heads up to be on the lookout for more of our professional learning webinars coming out in these upcoming months. There will be some communication, but we hope you join us again.